You will have seen that we've now reached a stage where we gradually build up to greater circles of Christian tradition formation. We started with the Apostolic Fathers, first with the overview, of course, of the whole period, but then with the Apostolic Fathers, a more limited selection or group of writings. From there to the martyrs, and then the flowering of martyrologies, the writings about the martyrs, and the development of the cult of the martyrs, and from there, of course, the cult of the saints. And now we come to the apologists. That's the name for a very big, wide-ranging group of authors and writings that produce a specific kind of textual tradition that we call apologies. And in a very real sense, this lesson on the apologists connect very closely to the foregoing one on the martyrs and martyrologies. If the martyrs and the phenomenon of martyrdom implies how or shows how Christianity collided with the Roman Empire and resulted in persecutions and martyrdoms of early Christians, most of these tensions between Christians and the people, their societies in which they were embedded, are the results of very sketchy knowledge by Roman authorities and the societies in which they are embedded about what Christianity is and what it means. There was all kinds of rumors about Christians and things said about them that were patently just way off. So Christians suffered because of the ignorance about them by Roman society and Roman authorities. Now, in a very real sense, the apologists are writing back against the empire. It's a way of a genteel and civilized way of resisting the empire. The apologies are mostly addressed to emperors. Whether they read the texts or not, that's beside the question, or local governors and so on. So what is an apology then about? An apology is a defense speech. It's a kind of speech that occurs in a court setting. So it's the defense offered by an accused to defend the accused, the accused against the accusations made against him or her. And through this kind of speaking back, pushing back against the empire, Christians come to stand out in the Roman Empire. They get a higher profile. These, of course, are elite writers who write apologies. So not the rank and file Christian, but educated people who can use legal arguments and sophisticated philosophical arguments, because these all occur in the apologies. So they begin to be, at a certain level of society, to be visible. People can take note of Christians. But the phenomenon of apologies and early Christian apologetics It's a far wider phenomenon than just defending themselves in a court setting. Of course, one aspect is writing against the Roman Empire, defending themselves against accusations, and showing through legal arguments showed how the Romans were inconsistently applying Roman law and made exceptions for Christians, just aimed at them. So Christian apologists said that Christians are not guilty of the crimes they are accused of or suspected of. Christianity is, in fact, a respectable religion and morally respectable, and they make a big point about that. But secondly, quite a number of apologies are written against Jews, Jewish interlocutors, showing that Christianity is the true heir of the promises made by God, and that Christianity actually supersedes Judaism, in that the promises or prophecies actually are fulfilled in Jesus and in the emerging church. But then there's a third arena in which apologetics play out, and that's also against what is perceived as heresies, against the heretics. Of course, we now know that heresy and heretic is not an objectively descriptive term, and that these are just people who also formulated their faith, but from a certain perspective. People who came to define what is mainstream have come to define these people are heterodox, they are not mainstream, they are heretic. So in these kinds of apologetic writings, there's more an positive exposition of emerging orthodox theological viewpoints. So three kinds of arenas in which apologetics play out. Uh, the first one, of course, against the Roman Empire, the accusations by political authorities against Christians and how they were treated. Also against the Jews, marking Christianity off against Judaism, and then more internally, also arguing for more orthodox, mainstream theological positions. There are a few things to note about this. Gradually, as we see from the Apostolic Fathers, which is a limited collection of writing, to the martyrologies, and it's already a wider phenomenon. And then, of course, we come here to the Apologists, which is, as you will see in the prescribed writings, is a quite voluminous collection of writings. So there's a gradual increase in writings that I want to point out here, that there's a sudden over the period from the late 2nd century to the 4th century, there's an immense increase in Christian writings. So Christianity, what defined Christianity in a very real sense, is that it was, and that was really something new in the later Roman Empire, that it's a textual religion. It gets written. Another thing to note is there's such a variety of kinds of apologetics. So Christian apologies do not constitute a single genre of writing. So there are various kinds of writings, exhortations, legal defense speeches, sermons, theological treatises. But they all have this in common, that it's a discourse of defining what Christianity is. And that's the last thing I want to draw attention to, and that you should pick up. And this is what makes this an important part of the whole plan of the module, the study of the formation of early Christian identities, namely, and you will understand this very well, that apologetics constitute a very important phase in the formation of early Christian identities. exactly because of this formulation and articulation of what is Christianity about. What do Christians do? Some apologetic writings actually spell out what Christian tradition is like. Where do they derive it? From where do they derive it? And what do they do in their liturgies? What kind of practices? So it's very much an important part of early Christian identity formation. So gradually we can see how Christian identity unfolds, gets articulated in the Roman world, and becomes it's almost, if I can use an image, it swells into the Roman world, so that it becomes the kind of Christianity that we begin to recognize as the mainstream church with orthodox mainstream traditions. Just be careful about using this term orthodox. We don't load it with theological valuation, or it's not an evaluation of what is true or false, but in a historical sense, you can see that there's, at least at the level where the elite writers are writing, who think they have the right to and the ability to define what Christianity is, there's some kind of continuous identity beginning to be cooked out, literally cooked out in the course of the first 4 centuries of the Christian era.